After 2 relentless years of chasing the man I loved, I got into a car accident and lost my memory. I forgot I was gay. I forgot who I had feelings for. I was still dazed and recovering in the hospital when he showed up. He said he was my boyfriend. Then he hauled in a massive suitcase and threw it open right in front of me. Inside were tickets, photos, movie stubs, notes, even a ridiculous heart-shaped keychain. He said it was proof of how I'd pursued him. Apparently, I wasn't just gay, I was already taken. Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. After carefully flipping through the suitcase, the aloof man began introducing each item one by one. This one, you got me while you were traveling. This scarf, you knitted it for me last winter. These clip-on earrings were a gift from you. You said you wanted us to have a matching set, but I don't have pierced ears. And this one. Okay, I believe you. I interrupted him, pressing my fingers to my temples as I stared at the mountain of gifts piled inside the suitcase. My head spun. 2 weeks ago, I had a minor car accident. Unfortunately, I hit my head, because of course, and ended up with amnesia. The good news? It was slowly getting better. The bad news? Apparently I was gay. And even worse, I already had a boyfriend. And worst of all, I was the one who chased him first. I snuck a glance at the man in front of me. Handsome face. Sharp eyes that tilted up slightly at the corners. Cold, elegant vibe. But honestly, not my type. What are you thinking about? His voice snapped me back. My boyfriend pulled over a chair and sat beside my bed, casually peeling an apple with practiced ease. In just a few quick movements, he'd carved out little rabbit shapes from the slices and offered one to me on a fork. Caught off guard, I took it. He smiled faintly. Let's get to know each other again. I'm Stephen Christopher. The sweet scent of apples filled my nose. The crisp bite echoed in my ears as the juice ran down my throat, accompanied by the low rasp of his voice. My eyes couldn't help but drift to his lips as he spoke. We go to the same school. Same major. But we don't live in the dorms anymore. He paused, eyelashes fluttering. You just agreed to move in with me, and then the accident happened. Move in. He nodded as calm as ever, handing me another slice. We're very close. I chewed slowly, unable to argue with my mouth full. Then he looked up at me briefly before glancing away again. Really like me? His ears turned red, visibly red, against his pale skin. His face stayed composed, but the flush gave him away. It made my fingers itch with the sudden urge to touch them. From then on, Stephen Christopher came by every day. Claiming the role of my boyfriend, he'd arrive with bags full of fruit and supplements. When he couldn't make it, he'd always text in advance. On the day I was discharged, he showed up bright and early, carrying a bouquet of flowers. He handed it to me without a word and started packing up my things. I sat on the edge of the bed, hugging the flowers, watching him move around the room. A late wave of embarrassment washed over me. These are for me? As soon as I asked, I regretted it. It sounded like the dumbest attempt at small talk. Yeah. For you. Stephen didn't pause. He just looked up briefly, then returned to packing. You don't like them? I looked down. The bouquet wasn't large, but it was made entirely of flowers I liked. Even the wrapping paper was in my favorite color. It looked beautiful. How could I not like it? But still, we barely knew each other. Saying I liked it out loud felt like a confession. Nope. No way. Panicking, I yanked the bouquet up to hide my face. Stephen chuckled softly. As long as you like it. Damn it. I reached up and touched my cheek. Why did it feel even hotter now? I had to admit, Stephen Christopher was insanely good at playing the boyfriend role. Right after finishing the packing, he went to handle my discharge papers without being asked. All I had to do was sit there, snacking on the neatly arranged fruit in the bento box he brought. I didn't need to lift a finger. This boyfriend I'd apparently earned in my sleep was starting to seem like a pretty sweet deal. He was gorgeous, sincere, and clearly put effort into the relationship. If only he were more my type, he'd be perfect. Sean Ferrero? So this is where you are. A shadow suddenly fell over me. I looked up, only to be met with the sight of a massive chest. Who? You don't recognize me? The owner of the chest leaned forward, revealing a soft, adorable face framed by tousled brown curls. He looked like a puppy. My type. I instinctively reached for my phone to ask for his contact info. But then, I thought of Stephen Christopher, and slowly pulled my hand back. I almost forgot. I had a boyfriend. Why aren't you saying anything? Who are you? You don't remember me? He stepped a little closer, cocking his head. Can't get me, so you're trying reverse psychology now? Playing hard to get. He scoffed. Makes sense. Haven't heard from you in days. I frowned. Seriously, who are you? I gave him another careful once-over. Sure, he was attractive, but I had zero recollection of him. Was he confused? Maybe I was the one who hit his head. Do you need me to call a doctor? I looked at him with a sympathetic gaze. The air froze for a second. No. Need, he gritted out. You're the one who needs help. Well, yeah. I blinked at him. Why else would I be in a hospital? He cleared his throat, muttering something under his breath. What was that? His voice had dipped too low, so I leaned in a little to hear better. But before he could say anything, someone grabbed my collar from behind and yanked me back. Stephen Christopher? Before I could speak, the curly-haired guy blurted out the name. I stood off to the side, completely lost. You two know each other? Stephen Christopher was slightly out of breath. He nodded, then silently took my hand. It was the first time we'd held hands. His palm was hot. What the hell is this? Curly spun around, his glare slicing straight through me. For some reason, guilt pricked at my chest. I instinctively tried to pull my hand away, but Stephen gripped it tighter. I'm his boyfriend. I glanced at him. He looked nervous, eyes locked on the other guy like he was preparing for a fight. His palm was slightly sweaty. I gave up struggling and decided to roll with it. Yeah. This is my boyfriend, Stephen Christopher. The moment the words left my mouth, the guy across from us looked like he'd been hit by a truck. His eyes jumped between our linked hands and my face. Then, trembling with disbelief, he forced out a bitter laugh. That's fast. Already bored of me? He scoffed. After all that chasing. Let's go home. Stephen cut him off and tugged me away without another glance. What did he say? I didn't catch that. Stephen glanced back briefly and replied solemnly. He said, wishing you both everlasting happiness. Me? That didn't sound right. Stephen pulled up to a sleek black SUV and stopped. I looked from the car, my literal dream car, to him. Next second he pulled out a key fob and hit the button twice. Beep beep. This is yours? Yeah. He opened the door for me. Hop in. I sat down, still stunned as he circled to the driver's side and got in. Then he leaned over and buckled my seatbelt for me, quick, smooth, like he'd done it 1,000 times. I stared at his ridiculously perfect profile. My brain was a storm of questions. My boyfriend is rich. Like, seriously rich. And hot. And somehow he's into me? Maybe I really did hit my head too hard in that crash. What are you thinking about? How someone like you would even? I froze mid-sentence. Nope. Nothing. I rubbed my nose awkwardly, just wondering why we're not moving yet. Stephen chuckled softly, reached over, and gently patted my head. Let's go home first. Okay. I turned my head to avoid the awkward tension, and missed the way Stephen's ears turned beet red, or how his hand trembled slightly as he pulled it back. Stephen took me straight back to what he called our place. Apparently, I'd agreed to move in with him before the accident. We stood outside the door, facing a smart lock. I instinctively pressed my thumb to the scanner. Beep. Incorrect password. Huh, I muttered, rubbing my hands together. Guess this thing's broken. I switched hands to try again, but before I could touch it, Stephen stepped up behind me, close. His whole body radiated heat, like summer pressing against my back. We haven't had a chance to register your fingerprint yet, he murmured, his hand gently covering mine. Let's do it together now. He was so close, his breath practically brushed against my ear when he spoke. That breath, hot and intimate, sent heat rushing through my skin, straight down to my fingertips. Beep. The sharp sound of confirmation broke the tension. Stephen Christopher let go and stepped back slightly. All done. Oh, that was fast, huh? I stammered as I pushed the door open and stepped inside. If the scanner ever breaks, you can use the passcode. It's your birthday. Right. Got it. Thanks. I nodded like a bobblehead. Stephen Christopher finally let out a soft laugh. You're welcome. I stood there at the doorway, flushed and stiff-limbed. His smile, it was stunning. Way better than the usual cool, quiet version of him. I touched my burning cheek. Was this how I'd fallen for him before? Meow. A long, soft cat cry broke my thoughts. I looked down to find a chubby Siamese cat sitting neatly by my feet, round eyes blinking up at me, dark markings in the middle of its face, looking like the very definition of adorable. Kitty. I knelt down, scooped it up, and immediately buried my face into its belly fluff. The little Siamese was surprisingly chill. Even though we were meeting for the first time, it just curled up in my arms like we were best friends already. And then, its tiny paws hugged my head. I was dying. It was too cute. Stephen Christopher. I looked up, clutching the cat with glee. Is this your cat? Yeah, he nodded, taking out a pair of brand new blue slippers. Found him outside school. Had him for 5 months. I've always wanted a cat. I rubbed the little head. Kissed its soft cheek. He's so cute. Stephen Christopher gave a tiny cough. Yeah, really cute. What? Nothing, he said quickly, handing me the slippers. Change your shoes. Oh, okay. I gently set the cat down and took the slippers from him. As I pulled off my shoes and looked at the pair, something didn't feel right. These slippers were ugly. Bright blue, cartoonish. One had a little archer drawn on it. The other had a half-pink heart. I stared at them horrified. Stephen rubbed his nose, asking softly, You don't like them? Oh no. I turned to look at his feet. Pink slippers. Left foot, half a blue heart. Right foot, a blushing cartoon figure clutching his chest. They were a matching set. Couple slippers. He must have felt my stare because he shrank back a little, toes curling. I can change into something else if you want. No need, I sighed, slipping the slippers on. What can I say? You're my boyfriend. Visibly thrilled, he perked up. You hungry? Want me to cook something for you? Before I could answer, the Siamese leapt onto my knee, tail curling up high, rubbing against my cheek. I'm good, I said, poking at the little guy's soft belly. So it's a boy? What's his name? Stephen froze for half a second. Then, in a panic, tried to change the subject. Tired? Want to nap a little more? He even reached out, trying to hold my hand. I frowned a little. You're being weird. It's just a name. The Siamese cat gave a perfectly timed meow. What name? I asked again, now curious. Stephen clamped a hand over his face. His ears turned a deep red. After a long, painful pause, he mumbled, barely audible. See. Sean Chris. What? His name is Sean Chris. The second the words left his mouth, Stephen wrapped his arms around my waist and buried his face into the cat's belly, utterly mortified and completely silent. I looked at the tip of his red ear and instantly blushed myself. Just one day in, and I'd already lost count of how many times I'd blushed. It felt like we were falling in love all over again. From the very beginning. Silly. Maybe I was starting to fall for him. I thought I was already getting used to being Stephen Christopher's boyfriend. But then night fell. We were lying in the same bed. Same room. Same blanket. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. Okay, maybe not literally. But it felt like the air was a little too heavy. Stephen Christopher was lying next to me, silent. In the quiet dark, I could hear every single breath he took. I was nervous. Way too nervous. Aside from sharing a bed with my grandma when I was little, this was the first time I'd ever slept beside someone. And that someone happened to be my boyfriend. My brain wouldn't shut up. I kept wondering if he was already asleep. If he wasn't, what was he thinking? Was he just as wide awake as I was? Unable to resist, I snuck a glance over my shoulder. Stephen Christopher hadn't moved. His breathing was slow, even. He looked sound asleep. I turned back around. Nope. Still wanted to look at him again. I rolled over slowly, inching toward his side. You're not sleepy? Stephen's voice came out of nowhere. I'm going to sleep. Right now. I instantly pulled the blanket over my head and rolled away, embarrassed to my bones. What a coincidence, he said after a moment, voice soft and teasing as he turned over too. I can't sleep either. For a long time, maybe it was only a couple of minutes, but it felt like forever. Stephen didn't say another word. In this quiet space, even seconds stretched endlessly. Then, finally, his voice broke the silence again. Do you like me? He didn't speak loudly, but I heard every syllable. I wanted to say, of course I do. But before I could speak, he followed it up with another question. What if you got your memories back? Would you still like me then? I didn't know what exactly he was worried about. Maybe he thought I wasn't doing a good job as his boyfriend since losing my memory. Maybe he thought I wasn't giving him enough reason to feel secure. So I wriggled out from the covers and scooted closer to him. A second later, my hand brushed against his, resting quietly at his side. This time, I took the initiative and held it. His hand was just as warm as that day in the hospital. Even if I don't have my memories right now, I said, you're still my boyfriend. That alone is enough for me to like you. Stephen gently squeezed back, still silent. So I kept going, heart racing. Forget the past. From now on, and from this moment forward, I'm going to like you. Always. The second I said it, I wanted to crawl under the bed and die. It was so cheesy, it gave me goosebumps. But the moment those words left my mouth, I could feel Stephen's fingers tighten around mine. Meow. Stephen never got to finish his sentence. A loud, pitiful cat cry came from the other side of the door. He turned on the bedside lamp with a sigh. Before he could get up, I was already out of bed and opening the door. Sean Chris, our overly dramatic Siamese, bolted in and leapt straight onto the bed. By the time I slipped back under the blanket, he'd already scrambled onto my chest, purring and rubbing his face against mine, trying to find a way under the covers. You're not hot? I asked him. He rubbed his face against mine again, purring louder. Stephen chuckled. He wants you to hold him. He's clingy. Oh, then come on in. I shifted onto my side and lifted the blanket for him, patting the empty space beneath. Sean Chris immediately dove under, curled up in my arms, and settled down with a happy sigh. Stephen switched off the lamp and climbed back into bed. The second he lay down, Sean Chris let out a tiny chirp. Stephen's hand reached under the covers, patting around until he found the cat nestled against me. He really likes you, he said softly. Then, after a pause, he added, Sean. I didn't answer. It wasn't because I didn't want to. I just didn't know if he was talking about Sean Chris or me. I might have messed with the wrong person. And by person, I mean that curly-haired guy from the hospital. Stephen and I were in the same major, but we didn't share every class. When it came time to register for electives, I didn't manage to snag the easy ones, so I went with something I genuinely liked, badminton. What I didn't expect was for that to be my first class back after the accident. And even more unexpected, I ran into him there. The moment the professor called roll, I finally learned his name, Donald Jackson. And the moment I saw him again, I felt it, this unmistakable, prickling sensation. Someone was staring at me. He watched me during the lecture, during warm-ups, even during free play. It was intense enough to make my skin crawl. When class ended and Stephen came to pick me up, I cast a subtle glance toward Donald Jackson and quietly tattled. Did I piss him off somehow? He's been staring me down the entire game. Stephen Christopher followed my gaze, just in time to see Donald Jackson flip him off. Without responding, Stephen simply grabbed my hand and tugged me toward the exit. There's no need to stoop to his level. Let's go home. I made something good for you. Honestly, I was ready to let it go too. The guy was built like a linebacker, not exactly someone I was dying to provoke. But just as we turned to leave, Donald Jackson stepped in front of us. "Can we talk?" That set me off. "What's your deal? If you've got a problem with me, take it up with me. Why are you coming after my boyfriend?" His pupils shrank, and for a second, his expression twisted, almost like he was hurt. "I'm here to talk to you," he said, voice shaking slightly. "Just us. Alone." I looked between Stephen Christopher, lips pressed tightly together, and Donald Jackson, looking like he might burst into tears. My head started to throb. What the hell had I gotten myself into? With a deep sigh, I muttered, "Fine. Let's talk. Somewhere quieter." Donald let out a small grunt of agreement and obediently followed behind me. "Great. Here's fine. No one's around," I said, arms crossed. "Do you really not like me anymore?" Donald's voice was low. His eyes dropped, a shadow of heartbreak in them. "What the hell are you talking about?" I blurted out. All right, forget I said that," he muttered, stepping a little closer, then hesitating, hand half raised before letting it fall again. "I heard you were in a car accident. Are you okay now?" "If that's all you wanted to ask," I exhaled slowly. "I'm fine. The only thing is, I still haven't recovered my memory completely." "What?" His expression froze. "You lost your memory? You don't remember me at all?" "Yeah. The past 2 years are a blur. So whatever happened between us before, let's leave it in the past, all right? We can just be civil from now on." Suddenly, Donald exploded. "I knew it," he shouted, rushing forward and grabbing my arm. "He's lying. Stephen Christopher is lying to you." "Sean, listen to me." Donald took a deep breath, trying hard to steady himself. Then he began, carefully, slowly. "We met freshman year. Right in that same elective class. You were the one who asked for my contact info first. You told me I was your type. And you started chasing me, hard." He looked down, voice gaining momentum. "You chased me for 2 years, Sean. 2 whole years. Up until right before your accident. You gave me gifts. We were this close to being together." He pulled out his phone and scrolled quickly, then shoved the screen in front of me. "Look, you texted me before the accident. You wanted to go on a date. And there's more." "Enough." I slapped his hand away. "I made that up." "What?" "Yes, I lost my memory. But the moment I saw you at the hospital, it all came back." I met his eyes with a hard stare. "I just don't like you anymore. That's it. Understand?" Donald looked stunned. It wasn't an act. He pointed at me, mouth opening and closing, completely speechless. "You don't like me. I forgot everything. Isn't that perfect?" I said coolly, glancing toward Stephen Christopher in the distance. "From now on, let's pretend we never met." Just as I turned to leave, Donald blocked my path again. "Who do you like now?" He followed my line of sight, and saw Stephen. His voice cracked. "No. Don't tell me it's Stephen Christopher. He's a fraud. He stole what was mine." "Stole what exactly?" I snapped. "What were we, Donald?" "Huh. But. He choked on his words, unable to answer. I shoved his hand away. "Just assume I really did forget everything." "Fine. But don't come crying to me later." He stormed off in a rage. I rolled my eyes and, without hesitation, gave him the finger. Stephen had clearly been watching the whole time. The moment Donald walked away, he rushed over, circling around me. "He didn't touch you, right?" I shook my head. He finally relaxed, reaching out for my hand. I hesitated, then pulled away slightly, just to mess with him. "You two talk about anything else?" I asked. Visibly tense, Stephen stepped closer again and tried to take my hand once more. I looked up at him, meeting his worried gaze, and this time, let him hold it. "Sean." He stared down at me with that mix of concern and gentleness I was starting to recognize. "What are you thinking about? Are you in pain?" He lifted a hand and pressed it to my forehead. "I'm fine." I pulled a dramatic face, pretending to be deep in thought. "Let's go. We've still got class." He hesitated a second longer but didn't push. Instead, he gave my hand a firmer squeeze. He knew, like a blade hanging by a thread above his head, This fleeting happiness could be cut down at any moment. That night, unexpectedly, I got a call from Donald Jackson. I glanced toward the kitchen where Stephen Christopher was cooking, then stepped out onto the balcony, quietly sliding the door shut behind me as I picked up. There was a long silence on the other end. I spotted a shadow moving in the corner of my eye, but spoke first anyway. Donald Jackson, if it's nothing important, I'm hanging up. Wait. His voice sounded hoarse, like it had been scraped raw. Was it? Did you really lie to me? Yeah. You don't like me anymore? That's right. Silence again. Then came the soft, scratchy sound of sobbing. You really can't love me anymore? I didn't answer. I just stood there. After a long pause, the line went dead. I turned around, and found Stephen Christopher standing just behind the door. I hadn't even noticed when he came over. He gently pushed the door open. What happened? I slipped my phone into my pocket. Spam call. Stephen blinked. His eyes flicked down to where I'd hidden my phone. His lips tightened. He'd heard everything. He knew it was Donald Jackson. He knew I lied. He saw me hiding my phone. Was it because I'd regained my memory? Was it because I had feelings for Donald again? A million awful possibilities crowded his mind. He bit his lips so hard it bled, but still managed to smile. Oh, well, dinner's ready. Let's eat. I smiled and slipped my fingers through his. Yeah. I'm starving. Let's eat. What I didn't expect was that after that call, Donald Jackson would become even more relentless. He sent a text, short and blunt, saying he was going to chase me again. And then he did. Everywhere Stephen Christopher and I went, Donald was there. Showing up with food. With presents. Exactly the way I used to chase him. This time, he brought some gift-wrapped box with a pink ribbon, like it was a national treasure. He shoved it toward me proudly. I rubbed my temples. Donald Jackson, I've made it clear. I don't like you. Beside me, Stephen Christopher subtly moved closer. Donald's eyes dimmed. I know. But don't you want to at least see it? No. It's not appropriate, I said, turning to Stephen. Besides, I already have a boyfriend. Stephen squeezed my hand happily. Donald refused to back down. Just take it. I swear I won't bother you again if you accept this. I sighed, took the box. Fine. Now can you go? Open it. I mentally rolled my eyes and tore the ribbon off. Inside was a black scarf. The knitting was uneven. The ends knotted messily. It looked like a bundle of wool exploded. It's getting cold, Donald said, eyes shining with hope. I made this myself. He was really hoping this scarf would win me back. Stephen Christopher doesn't know how to knit, right? Donald tugged gently at my sleeve. Maybe he won't even try. But I did. I can make you one every year. Stephen looked like he was about to grind his teeth to dust. I barely held back a laugh, stuffed the scarf back into the box, and returned it. Then I held Stephen's hand firmly on my lap and looked Donald in the eye. Donald Jackson, I don't like you anymore. I'm not accepting anything from you. Why? He whispered. You used to like me. I spent nearly a month in the hospital. You didn't send a single message. You didn't visit once. His face went pale. You didn't cherish the gifts I gave you, I continued. You gave them away. You told your friends I was just someone you toyed with to kill time. You said you didn't really like me, just wanted to see how long I'd keep chasing you. You were testing me. I cut him off. You want to know how I found out? I know a lot more than you think. You just never noticed. His head lowered inch by inch as I spoke. Love that never gets returned, it wears out, Donald. This isn't about love anymore. You're just upset you lost something that was always yours before. I stood. Move on. When we got home, it was judgment time. I dragged Stephen Christopher into the bedroom and patted the bed. He took off his jacket and sat down obediently. Kneel. He froze for a second. But to his credit, he listened, adjusting his posture quickly. Sean? He asked, confused. Sean Chris, the cat, thought he was being called and trotted over, meowing loudly. I scooped him up and used his tiny paw to point at Stephen. Our little Sean. Daddy made a mistake. What do you think? Should we punish him? Stephen broke into a cold sweat. His posture grew more tense. He reached out with one hand, tugging lightly at my pant leg. "Hands off," I said sternly. He pulled back, kneeling straighter. "Confess." "Meow," Sean Chris added, backing me up. Stephen's eyes darted left and right. After a moment, he muttered, "I'm sorry, I don't know how to knit scarves." "And what else?" I put too much salt in the food I made last night." "What else?" "There's more?" "Of course there is." I held Sean Chris in my arms, putting on my most serious face. "Spill everything. Now." I shouldn't have gone to see Donald Jackson behind your back," Stephen Christopher sniffled dramatically, swiping at invisible tears. "And I shouldn't have hit him after saying barely a word. Not that one." This time I waited. Waited so long even Sean Chris started tapping at him in impatient support before Stephen finally opened his mouth again. "Sean," he asked in a small voice, "did you remember everything?" I nodded. "Yeah. I'm sorry." Full confession gets leniency. Lies get punishment. Sean Chris gave an approving little paw pat to reinforce the law. "I'm not really your boyfriend," Stephen finally admitted in a trembling voice. "I stole Donald Jackson's identity. I accepted the love you meant to give him. I even brought you home." That time he really cried. Silently, but hard, big, fat tears dropping onto his knees, breaking into shimmers as they fell. I lifted Sean Chris's paw and used it to wipe Stephen's tears. Stephen caught his breath and went on, sobbing. I even unlocked your phone without permission, and I changed the contact name you had for Donald Jackson." The more he confessed, the harder he cried. He soaked Sean Chris's paw, making the poor cat flail and shake it like mad. I sighed and leaned forward, pulling him into my arms. "You're my boyfriend now. If you wanted the contact changed, then change it. Hell, delete it." "Really?" Stephen looked up with tear-red eyes. I wiped his face, couldn't help myself, and kissed his lips. Then instinctively licked mine. Salty. Definitely tears. Stephen went completely still. His eyes flew wide open, cheeks burning red, lips parted slightly, but he couldn't form a single word. And that's when it hit me. That was our first kiss. That kiss flipped some magical switch in Stephen Christopher. Every time the red in his face faded, I'd kiss him again and bam, he'd go red all over again. It was like hitting a reset button. Fascinating. I might have gotten carried away with how fun it was, because next thing I knew, he'd pinned me down and kissed me back, long and deep. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. His face was still crimson. I ruffled his hair with one hand and petted Sean Chris with the other. Then I looked him in the eye and said, "Stephen Christopher, come home with me this weekend. Meet my grandma." He nodded. "Okay." I didn't have parents. My grandma raised me. She was my only family. That's why I didn't tell her about the accident. I didn't want her to worry. But now, I liked Stephen Christopher. And I wanted him to be part of my forever. So the sooner I brought him home, the better. He was going to be family anyway. Bonus, Stephen Christopher's POV. Sean Ferrero was in a car crash. The moment Stephen Christopher heard, he ran to the hospital. He knew Sean had no family left except for his grandmother, so he covered all the medical expenses without hesitation. The sight of Sean lying unconscious in that sterile hospital bed tore something inside him. He couldn't do much. All he could do was stay by his side and take care of him. Then he found out Sean had lost his memory. And that's when Stephen realized. This was his chance. His one and only chance. So when Sean asked, confused and dazed, Stephen lied for the first time in his life. "I'm your boyfriend." Stephen first heard about Sean from Donald Jackson, his roommate at the time. Donald was showing off a picture on his phone, bragging like a child showing off a toy. Stephen glanced at the photo once. Bright smile. Clear ice. The word sunshine came to mind. The second time he saw Sean in person was outside a classroom, waiting for Donald to finish an elective. He spotted Sean jogging to catch up to Donald, eyes glued to the other boy. Sean didn't notice Stephen at all. But Stephen noticed everything. So, white t-shirt, torn jeans, clean, bright, magnetic. And that smile, made his heart stumble. The photo hadn't done him justice. His eyes were brighter, lips redder, expression livelier. After that, Stephen couldn't stop himself from looking for Sean everywhere. In class, on the courts, in the cafeteria, even the library. He soon realized Sean and Donald were practically glued together. So Stephen did the only thing he could. He started getting closer to Donald. And then one day, Donald casually handed him a gift Sean had given him. "Sean keeps giving me these useless things," Donald muttered. Stephen stared at the item in his hand. Something small, meaningless to Donald, but clearly picked out with care. He didn't say anything. But in his heart he thought, if it were me, I'd treasure it. That was the moment he realized he liked Sean. And he accepted it almost immediately. When Sean lost his memory, Stephen didn't hesitate. He remembered every single gift Donald had tossed aside, because he had kept all of them. He brought them to Sean and used them as evidence of Sean's affection. He stepped into the role Sean used to give Donald, and took it for himself. The guilt was there. He knew it was a low move. Like a thief stealing someone else's love. But even as he hated himself for it, he snuck into Sean's phone, changed the contact name for Donald Jackson, pinned his own, and added a red heart emoji. With a little note, "Currently not speaking." It was perfect. Stephen thought, just a few days. A fake boyfriend for a week. That's enough. Even 7 days would be a blessing. But no. When he saw Donald hanging around Sean again, refusing to let go, Stephen clenched his jaw. He wanted more. He wanted to be the one. The real one. The only one. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.